Welcome, everybody, to Generation Dan, the only show where we calmly say, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? Calmly. I'm Atlas Novack. I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
I'm Dino, the genetic marvel, and it's my fault we're late. That I wasn't in charge of anything. So there you go.
By 3 minutes, the travesty. Our guest today is Amma Marfo. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm glad I get to talk more nerd stuff with y'all because no one ever wants me to talk about books. So you're like, hey, do you want to talk about books more? And I was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, the good stuff. For people who are like, what the hell are they talking about? A few weeks ago, we did an episode also with Amma about the books that made us. So this is like a part 2 because, like, you know how they did Mario Galaxy? And then they're like, we had like a whole nother video game of levels left in us. Can we do that again? And Nintendo's like, yeah, sure, why not? So this is the Mario Galaxy 2 of those episodes.
Jim Eaton says, I'm representing the baby boomers as soon as I can figure out how to use the computer.
Well done, Jim. Well done.
It's overrated. Don't worry about it. Yeah. You don't need that.
The reason I brought up the Goblet of Fire thing was, I guess the bent that we're looking at least to start, is like the books that turned into movies and how most of them suck, but not always.
Yeah. You know what? I find that extremely frustrating because, like, I'm not a huge reader, but like when I do, and then someone's like, oh, we're going to do a movie about it, like, why would you ruin it? Why would you do that? And then it's hard because if you watch the movie and don't read the book, which is usually the case for myself, then people are like, the book's real better. I'm like, I'm aware how the world works. You don't have to ruin it. I'm adequate with the movie. It's fine. I'll just live my life. But yeah. What's up, Walkie Talkies?
Hey, Walkie Talkies, you're neat.
I don't know. What was a time where you watched the movie after having read the book and you were like, oh, wasn't that bad? Like, clearly they remove stuff which you're like, you're a horrible person for it, but at the same time, some things you're like, all right, it was fine. Like, it's plot device, I get it. It's wasn't too bad.
Now, can I ask a clarifying question here? Because we've defined no bounds on this conversation, so I'm wondering just to like figure out how wide or how narrow we can go. So I think about, for example, something like Oppenheimer, which is ostensibly a biopic, but it is based on a biography. Do those count?
I feel they should.
Yeah.
Like,
because if it is, then that means we get to rip on Green Book, and that's even better.
Then yes, let's
do that.
I'm happy to rip on Green Book, so let's go. But okay, so to Dino's question about like the book that was then adapted into the movie. So A Beautiful Mind, a biopic people have feelings about, right? You like it, you don't. I really liked it at the time it came out. I haven't revisited it in a while. But I think the nature of some of the stuff that makes that movie interesting, like someone read that book and was like, here's what's going to work, here's what's not going to work. And I think it was kind of like an artfully turned thing. Because in reality, it was like, hey, I'm talking to aliens. And someone's like, we're not going to want to watch someone do this for 2 hours. So what if he thought he was a spy instead? And that was, it was a adaptation that made sense. So obviously they're not exactly the same, but I get why they did it.
G for Goober. Thank you so much. Hold on. Let me reward you with something before we go any further.
That is horrifying, that question.
It's right here. Is this? There you go. That's how you reverse who is. Well, come on, man. Why do you have to be a bad person? That's all right. Thanks anyway.
Yes, we're all reading them. Thanks.
Yes, but you have to say something interesting first. Come on.
Okay.
Jaws. That's fantastic.
See, I never read the book of The Beautiful Mind. I only really know it as a movie, which I feel like that happens a lot, where you're like, wow, that was a really good movie. Where did they get the script? From the book. Like The Graduate, also a book. Fantastic movie. I don't think most people don't go like the book was better than the movie. The movie took the book and did something interesting with it. With the cinematography, with using instead of a score, they used a soundtrack, which was one of the first movies to do that. And made a meme out of Simon and Garfunkel. So good job on that, 40 years in advance, fellas. But Yeah, I always show it to my film study classes every year because a lot of them are about to be in that situation. And also a lot of the stuff that they recognize in movies like have their roots there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trope on TV tropes called Seinfeld is not funny, which means that people who watch Seinfeld now go, well, this is played out. But at the time, it was cutting edge. So I think The Graduate does that.
Maybe.
I could definitely see that. And I did watch the Festivus episode of Seinfeld with someone who had never watched Seinfeld before, and she hated it. So that'll happen.
My wife has never watched Seinfeld, and I kind of look at her because like somebody will make a reference, and I'm like, it's funny, and she's like, I don't get it. I'm like, that's because you're a bad person. Don't worry about it. But that's Seinfeld not being funny was part of the hilarious part about it, right? It's the fact that you're like, that's not funny, which is hilarious because it's weird. But
well, I think some of it was, and then some of it I think was like, I don't know. I think it depends.
Well, like perfect example, them waiting at the Chinese restaurant to get a table. You're like, is something everyone has experienced, and looking back is hilarious, but it's not funny. You're like, that's not a funny, like it's an event that people identify with as opposed to, it actually being hilarious. You're like, yeah, because when I've gone through that, I'm like, I'm prepared to murder everyone here. That's just immediately.
Of course, I'm not quite right. Yeah. It's a perfect example of a bottle episode, which is like it all takes place in one room. Yeah. And one of the things I make my creative writing students do is they have to write a bottle story because it forces you to think differently. You can't go anywhere. What do you do with your characters? And bottle episodes happen because the studio will run out of money, but they still have to hit a certain episode count. So they're like, let's just do it all on the one set.
Yeah.
And then it's not going to cost any money.
Atlas, there's a writer for Vulture named Catherine Van Arendonk who, like, if there are hills to die on, one of her big ones is like, what does or does not constitute a bottle episode? And she has a lot of opinions about it. And I'm thinking about it now because you're wearing the Woes Hollow shirt, and people are. Someone on the internet said, "Oh, that episode, the Ortbo, is a bottle episode," and she's like, "No, it isn't," and did like a 7-minute. No, exactly, it isn't. Yeah. But that terminology has gotten co-opted for a lot of things that are not that. But you bring up what is a good bottle episode reminded me of that. But
yeah, the Chinese restaurant, the Fly episode of Breaking Bad, the Star Trek episode where they make a ship in a bottle. That's where the name comes from. The episode of Archer where they're stuck on the elevator, and that one's great.
But I like a movie that takes place two come to mind. Is there's like a movie that takes place just in one situation, and then you just see all like this entire world transpire. Like one is The Sunset Limited with Samuel Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones, and like they arrive at the guy's house, they talk because he saves him from jumping on the tracks, and they're kind of discussing like why should you or should you not. And it's originally a play, but it's all just them two sitting on opposing sides of a kitchen table. And then the end is they leave and they part ways. And you're like, which is wild.
Waiting for Godot, another great example of that. Yeah. It's two people waiting for their friend to show up on the train.
Are we counting plays in this, by the way?
Sure. Why not?
Hell yeah. Okay.
They made a play out of the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. You can do it as a one-act play. Like you can buy the rights and do this at local community theater. It's pretty.
I kind of love that.
Yeah.
Or like kids at a forensics competition. It's like we're doing the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. That's amazing.
I feel like that's a win, right? Like it's the same. There's a movie with what's his name? The guy who played Venom, Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy. He does. There's a movie called Locke, Locke, and it's him driving in like an X5 BMW SUV on a highway, and you essentially watch as his entire life comes crashing down, all on the premise of him trying to do the right thing after having not done the right thing. And you're like, it's a lot. I mean, the whole time you're like, I can't. It's kind of like a car accident. You're like, I can't. I'm not supposed to, but I'm definitely not turning away. Just oh my god, what the, it's. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a certain element of that, and even when it comes to those situations, like in a book, like it's once it's got you properly, like then you really get sucked into that world, right? And I think one of the big disconnects is when they do an adaptation, like they kind of miss those triggers that really kind of suck you in, and then you're kind of like, well, now I'm just an observer, and you're like, that's not really how it's successful, right?
Yeah, like I'll give you a good example of that. My wife just reread The Handmaid's Tale, no reason, and and she's like, I'm gonna watch the show because I've never seen the show before, and she's like mildly disappointed by the show because due to the fact that it's a TV show and the book is a story with a set beginning and end, when the first season ends, the book ends, but they still have to keep going as a TV show. So she said they did certain things with certain characters, with plot points differently so that the show could keep going, which kind of ruined it for her. That doesn't necessarily make it bad, but there are like things you have to give up by adapting it to a TV show or a movie in order to make a good TV show or a movie. That is rather unfortunate.
It is. And I think too, like sometimes the faithfulness is the thing that makes it good, and then sometimes the lack of faithfulness is also the thing that makes it good. Like I think there's a case for both. It doesn't have to be faithful to be successful, but I do think that with TV in particular, like the longer it has to go, the further afield you get from the source material. So if you're really attached to the source material, that makes it difficult, which is why if anybody who makes TV is watching this, there is no shame in a limited series. There's no shame in it. Like, just do one and shut it down. Like, listen, that's okay.
This is one of those things where, like, I remember when everyone was like going crazy over the show Lost, and I was watching it, and I would watch an episode every once in a while. I'm like, I don't like that they add more questions than answers every single time. Like that's unreasonable. And then the ending happened, and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed because you were like, "That can't be the ending." I'm like, "I told you, this is stupid, and it's not going anywhere on purpose." And it was, and but then you have other things like Game of Thrones. Oh, Monty, why would you have to put you in timeout? No, just put him in timeout. You're in the corner, sir. Just calm down. Okay.
Yeah. So like, Lost made the mistake because J.J. Abrams is this kind of person where he's like, the mystery is the point, and it's like, yes, but also no, because like Severance, which this shirt is from, that I love, that just finished its second season. You guys should go watch it, audience, if you haven't already. But they know about the J.J. Abrams of it all. So they'll do a thing where they'll like give you a couple answers and then add a few questions on top. So like, here's 2 answers and 3 questions.
Sure.
And like,
but it's the big failing of Lost was there were 0 answers. There's nothing. There was only assumptions, hypotheses, no answers. Right. And that's like, at least, and it's one of the reasons why for me, Rogue One was, is probably my favorite Star Wars movie because it answers a ton of questions. Very few questions added to the mix, right? It answers a bunch of stuff, and also, after 30 years of waiting, you get to see Darth Vader just ruin someone's life multiple times. You're like, that is what I paid for right there. Just the 30-second ending, good stuff, right? But Jim even says, look, MASH should have been only last 3 seasons for sure. Walkie Talkie says,
I haven't seen enough of MASH to know if it ever like.
That's a generation thing too, though, right?
I figured,
and MASH was a film.
Yeah.
And then they were like, all right, now let's put it on TV.
Yeah.
And then
it went too long. It's Yeah. So Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men and Grapes of Wrath are pretty accurate movie adaptations, right? I don't know. I can barely read your comment, let alone the books. That's
As an English teacher, I do appreciate when there's like a pretty accurate movie version of the book because usually that's what gets my kids to read the book. Is like, if you make it through all this, we can watch the movie version of Othello with Lawrence Fishburne.
I was just going to ask, so when you're deciding what to show, is it do you tend to lean towards the one that's like more or less aligned with it was as written, or are you open to doing like an imaginative reinterpretation? So like you could do Lawrence Fishburne's Othello, but you could also do like the Mekhi Phifer, Josh Hartnett. Oh, how do you make that decision?
I think it depends on the class. If they are sillier, I will go with the more realistic one. If they are a class that like has a good head on their shoulders, I'm cool branching off for it. Example, my honors class this year, they're like smooth as butter. They're great. And I did like a whole little side quest about queer coding as a thing using Romeo and Juliet and Mercutio. And in order to like top off that lesson, I picked the scene from the 90s Romeo and Juliet where it's like his reveal and he's a drag queen just to like pow, there you go. So yeah, loved Othello with Morpheus.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's true. They play it completely straight and it's like it's good. It's for what it is. I think it's solidly done.
And look, meaningful movies like that. Like I love a movie that has a good, meaty purpose, right? It's when it's just like it's the same thing. Like I know Victoria and I will do this where we'll turn on a movie like, okay, let's not have to think. So you're like, okay, that's blockbuster explosions, things like that. You know, like we turned on Fast and Furious, Fast X the other day, and it's like you don't need a brain for this. You just turn it on, and
that's fun. Yeah,
it's
Mario Kart the movie. Yeah,
basically, right? So, but yeah, no, that's and like and also too like watching something like Oppenheimer. Like we did Barbenheimer, so we watched them both in one day.
Okay, which first?
Oppenheimer. We watched Oppenheimer first because we wanted to not, you know, be emotionally devastated by the end of the day. You know,
and Barbie's the palate cleanser.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're like, all right, this is fun, and you know, who doesn't like a Mojo Dojo Casa house? You're like, that's fantastic. You're like, clearly, you know, the marketing on that could have been fantastic. Just you know, it's an older version of Barbie's house, and it's designed by Spencer's, and that's Ken's house. There you go. It's horrible, absolutely horrible, right? So yeah, but that's like. Even that, like it's Oppenheimer where you're going, a lot of people don't realize how horrible he was treated afterward, right? And you're like, he knew exactly what he was getting into and how bad this was going to be for him. If he was like, if I'm successful, it's like I failed successfully because nobody's going to love me after this. And you're like, yeah, that's about it. And they're also going to pin it on you. Sucks to be you, bro. But you know, it's
and to me, that's an example of an adaptation that was like it was efficient, even though yes, Oppenheimer is a long movie, but I did the audiobook of American Prometheus. It's a 26-hour audiobook. So
oh my god.
Yeah, so to be able to then it's like a 900-page book, 26 hours to read it. But yeah, so like to be able to condense that into the kind of narrative that you got. Now, are there things that I wish that they had gotten into? Yeah. Do I understand why they skipped them? Also, yes. But that's the work of an adaptation, right? Is to figure out if you're telling a new story in a different form, what makes that compelling and as truthful as you could get it in this particular era of biopic. We didn't used to care about that, but now we do. So,
yeah. Well, like, and then you have stuff like the Harry Potter movies that gutted certain parts, and you're like, why would you do that? Why would you? If you can make the Deathly Hallows 2 full movies, which I don't know if that was necessary, but like the other ones, you could have done the same thing. Why would you? It's a great story, you know. It's weird. The choice.
I'm of the opinion that so like the third movie is generally regarded, A Prisoner of Azkaban is generally regarded to be the best movie.
Yeah.
Just because the director did things with it that
it's a Cuarón. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. So like he like did things with the cinematography and the pacing, and yes, he cut out some stuff, but it's also like the most unconventional Harry Potter of all the books because there's no Voldemort problem. It's just like, you know, hey, we got to solve the mystery of like why is Hermione in 2 places at once, and I have a godfather now, and he's trying to kill me. Why is he trying to kill me? Like it like almost establishes a secondary villain and then kind of like rug pulls you on it, which is good. But because it's unconventional, I think it lent itself well to Cuarón doing that. Then the rest of the movies are like not very good to decent. Like movies 4 and 5 are terrible. Like the 5th movie is the shortest movie, but it's the longest book. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You are leaving out so much.
Yeah.
Order of Phoenix is Umbridge, right? That's the Umbridge one. Yeah. Okay.
Which
they did Umbridge well, I think.
They did do Umbridge well.
Yeah. She was properly hated.
Yeah.
Like and everyone's like, oh, she's the worst. Got it. Like it was loud and clear. And then you're like, and then she died that way. You're like, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I think what they really like stamped on was the Department of Mysteries, because that's the most interesting part of the book. It's you get a peek behind the curtain of the wizarding world. And it's just like, we knocked over the shelf with all the time turners, and then Sirius died, and then Dumbledore and Voldemort breathed some fire at each other, and we're done. And that's it. And it's like the description of the Department of Mystery in the books takes forever, and it's because they go in every little nook and cranny because they're looking for this specific thing, like this MacGuffin, and it's just they like squandered an opportunity.
Yeah,
that I hope they fix.
It's a rare instance of like, I actually would have liked to see more of the bureaucracy. Like that's never true, but like that is what made so much of that book interesting. And I think like you bringing up the Harry Potters in particular and invoking Goblet of Fire at the very beginning. Goblet of Fire is my favorite book and is my least favorite movie.
Me too.
By far. Not the least of which. Yeah, not the least of which because like I think what makes reading a book exciting is like who you envision the characters being.
Yes.
And I had enough beef with Cedric Diggory's casting to turn me off the whole movie because that's not who he was in my head.
Yeah. That's fair. See, my
wasn't really the beef I had. The beef was more with the that scene, but that's like the meme at this point. Did you put your name with the Goblet of Fire? Like that or just like the stuff going on, between the tasks. Like, it's a movie, they gotta keep it moving. But like part of what made the Goblet of Fire fun was the stuff going on in between, where he's got to deal with the Triwizard Tournament and also normal Harry Potter things, which we know very well by this point, and it makes that even more stressful and interesting.
Okay, but also too, like that bureaucracy and everything, if you by doing it visually and not explaining everything in extreme detail, you could kind of get like an efficient use and still be able to show everything. Like it wouldn't be cost effective, but you could get there. And you're like, instead you cut the whole thing, and you're like, why would you be such a bad person?
Why didn't they have the Death Eater fall into that weird glass that didn't break, and instead his head aged and de-aged until it was a baby head on an adult's body, and then he's fumbling around causing chaos during the fight? Like, I hate it so much. Where's the baby head?
That's terrifying but fun.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, Walkie Talkie says, how do you guys feel about movies completely changing the ending of a novel? One that comes to mind is First Blood. John dies. So I have that book. Like, it's a great book. Like, it is the movie itself is fantastic, but also like the book is great. And you're like, it was one and done, right? Like it really showed how, because remember, like the Vietnam War was the first time that big people who served came back. And instead of being regarded as heroes, they're like, you're a piece of shit. And they're like, I did the thing I was supposed to do. Why am I a piece of shit? And then you're like, oh, because it was all bullshit. Damn.
That's not the first time that happened in the U.S. Like veterans of World War I came back and found that the world had kind of moved on without them. Like there's a movie called The Roaring Twenties where a guy comes back from the war and his job has given, his manager gave his job to another guy. Yeah. And he's having trouble finding work and he becomes a bootlegger. Like, I
feel like that's a success, but that's an opinion.
Well, there's like an incel angle to the whole movie that I'm not going to get into, but it's a good movie. Go watch it. But like that was definitely not the first time that happened to Americans. But I think what made it different was that was the first war in like living memory that we lost.
Wow. So did the French. Right? That's the hilarious part about it. But but this is the thing is there are always circumstances, right? But we're talking everybody that came back from the Vietnam War was a villain, and they were like, what? Like people, like some people, regardless. Because remember, some people get affected by PTSD greatly, some people not as much. Like there's varying things, right? But that's the thing is that like that was why like he popped himself at the end, or his commanding officer did, for the reason of that it's like there was no coming back from this. There was no freedom afterward. You were now, punished forever with what has happened, right? So it's a different perspective, but then you're like, haha, but we could make more money if we make more, and you're like, why do you gotta be a dick? It's a weird thing.
There's that, and then like the whole because this is right before the 80s, and the 80s are like action movie paradise. Your diehards, your predators, all that stuff.
Good
and and by having Rambo be like the one-man army, it's pretty good propaganda for the army.
Absolutely.
That's probably what that was for. Like, you use our stuff, but
in your everyday life as well. It's wonderful.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, you can use our equipment and our like bases and things to film your movie, but you got to make us look good in the movie. It's kind of like how Apple won't let the villains have iPhones.
Yeah.
Oh, get lost, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if you're watching a movie and the person has an Android, they're probably going to be the villain.
Yeah, like
if they all have Androids, then good job, Apple. You gave yourself a swirly.
That's insane, because I would think the villain would have the Apple phone. I feel like that's
So do they. So
that's
why. This is okay. Hold on. Jim Eaton says my father came every day. I'm a different person. I've heard that so many times. Mm-hmm. One guy I remember he was saying that his brother came back, and like was suddenly very boisterous and conversational. He's like, he was the shyest guy in the whole family, and like 2 days of him coming back, they came to the door and they're like, hey, he's got to come with us for a while. He's not okay. And they're like, he's been so much fun to have around. They're like, yep, that's a problem. That's not going to go well. And they're like, oh, well, how do you guys, so as well, I still haven't watched the end of Game of Thrones because I was like, you guys are all crazy, but I still find extreme joy in meeting people who name their children Khaleesi like that. I'm like, sucks to be you. Okay. That's best of luck.
Take it from somebody named Atlas. Always wait until the thing you're going to name your child after finishes telling the story before you pick the name.
That's fair. People are very aggressive when it comes to intellectual property. They're like, I want to be a part of it. You're like, or you can just wait. Just be patient. Mm-hmm. It's I feel like there's a certain amount of joy you get from books because you manufacture a universe on your own, right? Yeah. Which as you're saying, like, you didn't have Cedric Diggory, which I'm like, listen, Cedric Diggory, Robert Pattinson, like, I watched Mickey 17 just to watch him die, and it was great.
I'm about to go see that today.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie, but also you get to watch him die in horrible ways. And
in the book, he only dies 7 times, and in the movie, Bong Joon-ho was like 10 more. Yeah, that's why. So, like, when I tell people, I was like, "Oh, Mickey 7." They're like, "You mean Mickey 17?" I was like, "No, the movie is more. The book is 7." But yeah,
I love the idea of him just being like, "Who do I want to kill?" And I want to add. Yeah. I want to add 10 more. So, like,
I need to. Yeah, I'm gonna do. Let's spice it up a little bit. We'll do a little extra.
But, and that's actually one that I was thinking about because I did really, really enjoy that book, and then going to see the movie, I liked it. I think there are parts of it that were really good, but there's also some things that I wish that they had dug into a little bit more. Like, there's a part of the book I was like, oh, that's really interesting, and I wonder why they didn't put that in the movie. Poor Things had a similar piece of that. Like, there was one specific part of the book and I was like, that would have been amazing in the movie, but they picked different stuff. And sometimes enjoying or not enjoying a movie kind of depends on, well, did they pick the thing that I found compelling, and did they also find it compelling?
Yeah. Hi, Star. Welcome. Yeah, only bad people smoking in movies too, which I think is unfair. That's a little bit mean, but
yeah, because it used to be everybody smoked in movies.
Yeah,
it's a great time. Great time to be alive. Yeah. Thank you very much. No, I don't know. It's what's a book? For you guys read a lot more, so it's a lot of questions that are gonna be one-sided for me. But what's a book that you like both like dream of and also hope it never happens being adapted into a movie? Because like you know the book and you're like, I would love to see a visual representation of it, but also to 100% they're going to screw it up. Like it's a hard one, like, in my opinion, because I'm like, a lot, like, I tried to read. I remember going into the library in high school and I was like, I need a fantasy book. I like fantasy stuff, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you try The Hobbit?" I got 3 pages in. I'm like, "This isn't in English. I'm not reading this. This is batshit crazy." And I was just like, "No, I'll just read."
You're supposed to go on an adventure, Dino.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, choose your own adventure. That was my. Yeah, that's fine. Pop this through real quick. I'm like, watch this. Everyone dies. Boom. It's fantastic. But it's. I only got to read more as I got older, and even then, like now, I don't read as much as I would like to, but that's just because I'm addicted to TikTok, like a idiot.
And they designed it for that to happen to you. It's through no fault of your own.
It's 100% my fault. I'm an old man. I should go be like whittling wood or something. It's breaking rocks with my bare hands. I don't know, something like that. It's the only reason.
So I was thinking about this, and it's not one that hasn't already been adapted, but I've expressed this fear to several people, and like the second I say it, they're like, "Oh, you know what? I'm actually afraid of that as well." So
just don't say it 3 times. It's like Beetlejuice.
No, I won't. So Rope, the Hitchcock movie, based on a play, wonderful movie. John Dahl and Farley Granger, excellent Hitchcock. Like one room. It's not like it's not quite one take, but it's essentially filmed to look as though it's one continuous take. And I am deeply concerned that Ryan Murphy is going to be like, I need to remake that. No, you don't. Ryan Murphy, don't touch it. This isn't for you. Leave it alone. No one should touch it, but least of all you. It's that like 2 brunettes with like just enough queer energy that he's going to be like, that I have to touch it. Don't. Nobody don't. Let him.
Yeah. That's fair.
Last year I showed my film study kids Rope just to like display that, film technique. And they were like, why do they seem like they're so gay? And I'm like, okay, I'm throwing out the rest of my semester. All the movies are about queer coding now. That's what we're doing for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because they don't say it. It's just like they're friends and are real concerned about each other. It's like, these dudes are fucking. Like, there's no way they're not.
No, it's like radiating from the screen. Like, I had a lot of queer kids in that class too, so, they probably have better gaydar.
But doesn't that seem like something that Ryan Murphy's going to be like, I need to get involved?
Of course he would. Yeah, that's very... very on the nose for sure. I am afraid of Snow Crash, the book that I just finished reading with my seniors. It's like it's a dystopia. It was written in the 90s. It has things about the metaverse and that sort of stuff. So it has a lot of like tendrils into the modern day, and which is why a lot of my kids seem to like it. But I'm really afraid of them adapting it because it's got some tech bro energy to it that it's like the don't make the torment nexus thing where just like some shitty, like a Michael Bay or something is just going to be like more explosions or whatever. And they made a TV movie of it that just kind of, it's not really anything in the 90s. So just skip it. But yeah, I don't want them to make it because even though it's important to read, I think that the wrong people will get their hands on it and make it shitty.
Yeah. And that's another piece of it too, is like sometimes you have a take on like who should be involved, and like we don't get to control that, obviously. It kind of reminds me of like when they were getting ready to make Wicked and a bunch of people preemptively put up a petition that's like, listen, James Corden's going to want to get involved. Don't let him. Like that.
Don't let Into the Woods happen again. No.
Exactly. So we don't have control over those things. We can petition real hard, and the James Corden people did get loud. I don't know if John Chu was involved in that decision, but whatever. They got what they wanted so far. It doesn't seem like he's going to pop up in the second one. But yeah, like when you have a property that you care a lot about, people then have opinions about who's involved. And that's kind of the sign that the thing it did what it was supposed to do. People feel connected to it.
Yeah. Well, that's my problem with Bryan Singer and Michael Bay, which I'm like, you've ruined X-Men and Transformers, because I like comic books, and I'm like, if I ever meet you guys, I'm punching you in the face because you're horrible people. You're horrible people that don't deserve success, period.
Which X-Men was like ruined it for you? Transformers, but like
from the beginning. Listen, the problem with this is this, okay? If you are a fan of X-Men or comic books in general, okay, they have great, complete stories. And Bryan Singer goes, I want 4 stories put together, and then I'm going to make my own ending. That also doesn't make sense. And you're like, or hear me out. you have a good story and you could just bring it to life and it'll be glorious. You could just do that. And then you have Michael Bay having Optimus Prime getting his ass handed to him almost immediately. And you're like, listen, he's Optimus. His name is Optimus Prime. How dare you? Okay. Just to be very clear, listen, he guards my desk right there. It's very important. It's very important in my life. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I will murder on this. Just I like every time. Even there was the fourth one where they had a Ferrari Dino and they called it Dino, and I'm like, oh, I feel so important. And then he ruined that too because they didn't release a toy. I'd have 7 of them, but no. Why he's a bad person? It's just clearly the thing.
See, my favorite comic is Fantastic Four, and they've fumbled the bag on that 3 times. I have no confidence in you anymore. You have to come to me with the solution.
So did they fumble the bag? Yes, but also too, like if you look at Fantastic Four comics, they're extremely wordy and a lot of talkative and a lot of stuff that nobody understands. Where you're going, technically, they kind of did it right. It's just a shitty story that they chose, and you're going like I have a lot of faith in the new one just for the look alone. It looks very interesting, and I'm like, I'm like, okay, but then also they're like, oh, and they're already signed up for Avengers Doomsday, and I'm like, wait, that one's supposed to be in the past. Why do you have the same?
They're
gonna do more multiverse shit.
Yeah, it's all multiverse bullshit. But I do think that I'll say this: I also really like the Fantastic Four. Genuinely just it's one of my favorites. And I'm excited about this one, even though the bag has been fumbled, because Matt Shakman, who's directing it, also did WandaVision, and WandaVision is
I liked WandaVision.
That's that era too.
Yeah, so exactly, and I loved WandaVision like so much more than I expected to. Like as someone who loves TV and like cares a lot about like the history of TV and like how it developed, like that was a show that was like that was going to be for me, even if I wasn't involved in like the Marvel of it all. So kind of seeing what he did with that, and like it's like, oh, he's going to have this show. I'm like, I trust him. He's going to be fine. Anyone who's followed me on Instagram for more than 36 hours knows if Pedro Pascal's going, I'm going. So like we're fine.
Yeah, that's for everybody though. Come on. He's like a little candy after a good meal. You're like, he's such a sweet treat. It's fantastic. Come on,
how could you not?
Yeah.
In The Last of Us. Yeah. Have you guys read the Dune books? Thoughts on the 80s versions and the new version? I never saw the